Hello, you're watching my YouTube channel. I am your host, Kamran Arshad. Today, I have invited a guest in this vlog, and I am going to discuss her life, her visions, her goals, and most importantly, her field. Hi and welcome. We are delighted to have Kashif Imran here today with us. Kashif, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. But to start this interview properly, Kashif, could you please tell us what inspired you to pursue a career as defense analyst and security and strategy studies? And definitely, perhaps, share a bit about your journey leading up to your current role.
Okay, so you want me to share my journey and basically introduce myself?
Yeah,
Okay, so first of all, once again, thank you so much for having me. I'm Kashif Imran. I'm currently a postgraduate student pursuing MS in Strategic Studies from National University of Sciences and Technology. And I'm also a group undergrad. I did my undergraduate from NUST as well. It was in public administration. Apart from assistant working under Dr. Tahmeen Aslam Ranja, and I'm also a in building life coach as well. I'm a volunteer worker. I volunteer with Global Shapers as well, and I am an aspiring defense analyst. Apart from that, yes, as I told you, I do a lot of volunteer work. I am very much interested in security issues, and I look all the security issues that are going in the contemporary world in very different dynamics, not in a very traditional dynamics, because I see the world is evolving, so the thought process needs to evolve as well.
uh,
So I think that's very brief introduction. Just one thing that I do career counseling as well, apart as side by side with me becoming a defense analyst. So that's all about me.
that's great. You have a long journey, and I must say, you have spent a lot of time to
Thank
enhance the
you.
strategies on your personality, to guide the people who are around you. And the most important thing that you have mentioned one thing in your intro that you have a career counselor as well. Am I right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have a question in that because you have mentioned a career counselor. So the point is that could you please tell me what is career counseling? Because I have seen a lot of people who are graduated from the universities, who are graduated from the colleges, and they are at that position where they have to make a right decision for the life, for the path, for the opportunity they think that they deserve that opportunity. But unfortunately, we are living in Pakistan. Unfortunately, we have a lot of great institutions. We have good colleges, we have good universities and academies. But the point is that we do not have even a single institute which called career counseling institutions. How do you feel that?
Okay, so first of all, you asked me what exactly career counseling is, and you have, while asking this question, you have already answered that this exactly is what career counseling. That you said that when you graduate from a university, you have to make a certain decision for yourself, for your family, for your future, and you need a guidance for that. You need a pathway for that. So
Mm,
that's what exactly career counseling is, to provide you a pathway at the right time, at
mm.
initial stages of before graduating from university, so that you can, when the point you have at the point you are when you have graduated from university, you have a bit of clarity. And I see that it's a very unfortunate situation, and it's my personal experience that when I was applying for universities in my while I was starting my journey of undergraduate, I had a lot of challenges because I didn't have the proper guidance, that because I was applying for the Department of School of Social Sciences and Humanities in NAS, and I saw very less amount of guidance there. And I really felt that these fields and more or of a lot of other fields, we the metric FSC student or O level student are not at all aware of, and it's so difficult for them to make a choice that would in long run be fruitful for them. What happens is that I find very unfortunate. The student will randomly pick. It's what the dilemma of Pakistan is, just either you are doctor or you are engineer or you are lawyer. No three options are. If you are unable to secure seat in any of these three options, you randomly choose a field, and then with time you realize that's not something it aligns with us and something that we don't want to do, and you are stuck in another dilemma. So that's a very unfortunate situation where students are not given guidance, and unfortunate that there are very less institutions for career counseling. And if they are, I'll be a bit blunt, they are more of money-minded businessmen, business institutions than a proper counseling to serve the students. So that's what I do is I'm not a professional career counselor, I'm a volunteer career counselor. On the platform of Global Shapers Community, I'm the project lead for career counseling for all, where I reach out to different schools, like I reach out to them, I guide students, and I have a whole team in which one of my colleague guides the students on AI and it's advanced, and one of my colleague who is my co-lead as well, he guides students on multitasking in order to navigate what exactly you want to do. And I am personally, what I do is I do life coaching under the umbrella of career counseling, because when you don't have soft skills, when you don't have enough confidence and important elements of personality like that, you cannot excel in career whatever you choose. So I believe in developing students from a very very basic level, starting from their personality enhancement, so that they are wise enough, so they have enough wisdom to choose the right decision for themselves, because I cannot pick and choose for themselves. They need to choose it, and for that I make sure they are empowered enough to make a right decision for themselves.
Well enough. Kashif, how do you analyze a person? I mean, what qualities do you look in someone that he or she needs career counseling?
uh, is he or she can do a career counseling? That you're asking, that what qualities should a career counselor have? That's your
No,
question.
actually, I am asking, how do you analyze a person that you have to counsel him or her, and what qualities do you look in someone?
Okay, so that's a very interesting question. So I'm a service provider. I have to provide service. So
Hmm.
I exactly don't look what kind of quality a person should have, because if I do that, I'll be very biased towards a certain set of community. I have to empower those who are underconfident. I have to bring them out of their cocoon, out of their shell, towards toward the path on which they can reach their full potential.
You break
So
the
yes, but
comfort
one.
zone of the person who wants a career counseling. Am I right?
Okay, yes, exactly. But one thing I would mention, no matter how much you try to help someone, if someone is not ready to help themselves, I think everything fails, because yes, there will be guidance, there will be a lot of sources, a lot of opportunities. But if you don't have that drive, the spark to do something, because you have all the opportunities, all the guidance, now you have to work as well. If you're unable to work on yourself, then all the effort goes to vain. So that's the thing that I look, that the people I'm guiding, are they willing enough, are they ready to get into this challenge of self improvement and becoming and to excel in their career. So that's something I do look. Yes, you just have to have a good potential to, you don't have to be perfect, you have to have a lot of flaws. You have to have a less amount of guidance, that's fine. But one thing that you need to have a passion, and you need to have a drive to really stand out.
Amazing analysis you have given to us. Kashif, what do you believe are the most pressing global security threats currently, and how do you think
Right.
they should be addressed?
Right. So if you see the current world dynamics, apparently, yes, we see that the only global hegemon right now is USA. So we can perceive that it's a unilateral world. But ever since the Cold War One ended, the dynamics of world order has been changed. So initially, what we see in the history, that it was World War One, World War Two, that the only one big or magnanimous event has impacted the whole world. The current thing is, in the current contemporary world, we see multiple issues impacting the world order and impacting the entire security framework, and multiple issues happening at multiple places in different regions, and all happening at the same time. First of all, we are currently in the situation, it's called Cold War 2.0, where USA and China are in the quest of power and to be, where we see is that USA has been stuck in a Thucydides trap, and China is trying to become a next global hegemon. While it is regional hegemon. It's trying to become a global hegemon, which threatens the US's current hegemonic position, and that puts them into the Cold War, where they are in a warfare of technology advancements, and they're in a warfare of economic advancement. That's one of the issue that the issue that we see is happening in excuse me, in the in the setting of Eurasia, where Russia and Ukraine, they are at the full scale military war ever since Russia invaded Ukraine back in 2022, I guess, or 2024. I'm not sure if I did that. My apologies. So that and more, and then we see Israel doing a full-fledged, full-scale genocide on Palestine. That's creating another security dilemma. So we see that in current world, there's not one issue; it's the multiple issue that is impacting the entire globe. It is impacting the diplomatic relations of countries with each other. For example, if we talk about Pakistan, Pakistan is what I can perceive is going to be stuck in a very difficult situation, because in the light of dependency theory, we see that Pakistan has a lot of dependence on USA for its economic aid, and USA dominates Pakistan for its own benefits, aligning with its extraterritorial nature. So that is going to be a very difficult situation for Pakistan in terms of diplomacy, when they have to either choose between being at the side of China or being at the side of USA, or in other sense, that since Pakistan doesn't acknowledges Israel, it doesn't recognizes Israel, and that might put a lot of pressure from America on Pakistan to acknowledge it. So what I see is that the most pressing issue is that all of these three wars happening, one being a war in a very totally different dynamics, in a very modern warfare, then other war that is already on a full-fledged military scale war, and then the war that is mostly ethnic cleansing and human rights. So there are three different kinds of war that is, I believe, overall impacting the global security. And then it will affect the diplomatic relations. It will affect the human rights issues as well, because now security is not just military, it's human rights. It's a world of human security. So it's going to impact environment, it's going to impact economy, it's going to impact the social security. So I believe it's a very multi-dimensional security issue that I have just elaborated.
Kashyap, do you ever feel that in coming future, in coming days, in coming years, Israel, China, Russia can declare that they are the superpower, or America
Well,
would remain the superpower?
well, that's very interesting dynamics to explore. The thing is that everyone, the country that you mentioned, Russia, China, and Israel is focusing for its goal to become a greater Israel. They are going for starting from a regional hegemony.
Yeah, they
China is
have
already
occupied
as
20 kilometer of the area of Syria right now.
exactly,
They are
yeah, that's
they,
exactly they
they
are,
are ready to
and they are
claim that
already
they have occupied Damascus as well.
exactly that's, and you see that already Israel is occupying territories beyond Palestine. And then you see China, China is working a lot on its economic sovereignty and technological advancement. Then you see Russia, who has this imperial legacy that want to continue the imperial legacy that continued with the that discontinued with the disintegration of Soviet Union, and they really want to revive their empire. So I'm not going to say that USA will not no longer be superpower. What will happen will be it will create a situation of a Thucydides trap, as I mentioned earlier, where USA is going to be threatened with the rise of more and more powers, and all of these are going to be in they are going to collide in the power politics, and to really come at the top of the world. So if we say that the USA, let's suppose hypothetically speaking, is China surpassed USA, so that's going to change total world dynamics because American exceptionalism is to spread its liberal democratic ideas to the world. China's is not to. China doesn't believe in spreading their ideas to the world, so there will be a totally different dynamics of the world. However, still USA is the superpower. USA still has more power. USA still have a lot of authority, and a lot of countries depend on USA. So somehow I do believe it might be unlikely in at least this decade, but if we see in 5 to 10 decades, a long journey, so we might see a new world order.
I
Yeah.
fully agreed with your analysis about the China or USA politics because I have seen yesterday I was watching a video and I analyzed that Biden government and Joe Biden is still trying, even he has lost the election, he is still trying to push USA to the war. And because Trump has to to take an oath in coming days in 20th of January, so he will have some difficulties or problems to call off the war.
Right. That's going to be a very interesting situation to analyze in the future. I cannot right now comment on this because I haven't heard of this news. But if we analyze Trump's first term, he was America first, and if we continue his policies of America first, we can see China getting a room of opportunity to spread its more hegemon.
Hmm.
But it's going to be a very interesting situation to analyze.
Kashif, how do you stay current with emerging trends and technologies in the defense sector, and what role do you think innovation will play in shaping future military strategies?
Definitely, that's actually the with the speed that we are technologically getting advanced, it's going to change the entire global landscape, or particularly in the terms of security.
Hmm.
So initially, what was that? It was in that I divide the time period for comparison in Cold War One, the earlier time period, and I see this present time from the lens of Cold War 2.0. So when the Cold War was going on, the main focus was economy and ideology. And now the Cold War that is happening, economy is the part, but technological advancement is more of the motive. So technological advancement, yes, that's going to really impact the world, and especially when we see that AI is emerging at such a high speed, it's definitely going to totally transform the security dynamics because we see AI is changing our lives, and security is one of the most important aspects where AI will play its part. That what we see right now is that China and USA, for example, the current leading powers, they are in a war or in a quest to make one of the best superpowers. Sorry, best microchip as small as possible, and because if they control that element of creating the most sophisticated, most advanced, most technological sound semiconductor, they are going to control the world, and that's all about that's we see that China is working dead hard for technological advancement. They are creating their own factories, they are creating their own uh, they're creating their own setup for technology, and and USA at the other side is trying to suppress China by putting sanctions on it, by creating a situation where China cannot really excel. So we see that in the current US-China rivalry, technology is this important. So every country, and then there's an element of middle powers, like for example Taiwan. We see it's one of the one of very important hub of for the production of semiconductor. And what we see in the dynamics of China and Taiwan, they're going to be a lot of rivalry, a lot of a security dilemma in this in this paradigm of technology. So just technologies, emerging technology is going to transform, and it is already transforming the security sector.
Kashif, defense studies are very difficult, and women can choose many professions. The question is that why did you choose this profession being a female for you?
Okay, so the thing is, since you mentioned being a female, why I chose it? So the kind of female I am, I'm always looking for the opportunity for the place that will push me out of my comfort zone. And to a little bit of my history, I was a graduate of public policy and public administration, a totally field related to internal matters of Pakistan governance and all. But when I was in my final year, I did my thesis on global war and terror. And that was the time I was getting really interested in the security dynamics. I also did one of my internships with us with one of the security sectors as well. I'm not going to name it. So, and that also really developed my interest in this field because security issues and everything that are really important, because security, I believe, is a human right. And if you don't know about your rights, how can you really demand your right? Because we get dominated by, we get manipulated by political parties because we are not aware of our rights. And security is one of the important rights. And I believe that I should know my rights as a woman. It's very important to be aware of your rights. And security is my right. And I decided, yes, I will go for this field. It is going to be very challenging, and it is a very challenging degree as well, especially studying in the most competitive university of Pakistan.
Hmm.
That's where you don't get marks on absolute grading. So that grading system is another challenge. So these challenges in the other way, it will always help me to reach my full potential as well. One reason is to reach my full potential. Another reason is to know my rights and to know where the world is heading, to navigate the situation. And thirdly, all about interest. When you're passionate, when you're interested in a field, things becomes easy with all your sheer hard work.
And when you find time to spend time with friends or to spend some time to entertain, what do you do for fun?
Okay, so the thing is, when you have chosen a path of self-growth, career advancement, and you have a big goals in life, you are bound to make some sacrifices. So my life is like, if I tell you a brief about my life, it's waking up early, eating healthy, going to gym, completing 10K steps, giving focus to my academics, doing my job, what I'm assigned to do, then spend doing my skincare and taking time for my family. It all that's exactly a brief overview of my day. And I have to make some sacrifices to reach my full potential to my goals. And one of the sacrifices I make is I have a very limited social circle. I have a very limited number of friends on, and I'm a bit of a skeptical person as well. Yes, skeptical and not skeptical, but I say I'm a very intelligent woman. And being an intelligent woman, I believe you have to have a very limited set of circle. Not everyone you should call your friend. I have acquaintance, I talk to them, I interact with them, they need me, I'm there for them. But when it comes to having a friend, I have a very two or three people that I would say they are my friends. And lucky or unlucky for me, they both are all of my very close friends, they are at different locations. So it is that my friends are very far away from me and I get more time towards my goals and we just talk on phone. But I do for what I do for fun is I do things for myself. I'm an advocate of self-love. I do take out time. I don't depend on people to make me happy. I am self-sufficient enough to make myself happy. Recently what I'm going to do is that I have worked very hard for my midterms and surprisingly I scored very well to my expectations and I am studying very hard. I'm working on my personality. I'm doing a lot of things. So I will treat myself by going on a concert that I got permission to go. So that's something I will do for myself. I see events that are going to make me happy, and I'll take out time to spend time with myself. So I'm more like a self-sufficient person enough that I don't need to be dependent on people to make me happy or give me fun.
Perfect. Can you walk us through your analysis process when evaluating complex
Okay, so
defense-related issues such as geopolitical conflicts or weapons proliferation?
That's a very interesting question. So my analysis process is some because I'm a new to this field. I just give my room to explore more. So I'm more of an exploratory person. But what I've after going through my first ever exams of this field, I realized what exactly the pathway I will choose that will help me excel in developing a very holistic, unbiased analysis.
Hmm.
So, first of all, it is important to stay current, to stay up to date with what is happening in the world,
Hmm.
right? And then you also need to have a certain paradigm. just keeping security and strategic studies aside, in a very general way, you need to have a certain paradigm, certain lens to view an issue. That's
Mm,
what we, as a researcher, are told to do, that you have to have a certain paradigm through which you will see the issue and you will analyze that. It
mm,
helps you to be like a guiding light towards reaching the core of the problem.
mm,
So my way of analysis is, first of all, I need to identify the issue. I need to know what exactly the issue is, and then I read about it, what's current development happening, and then I dig into history, because when you know your history,
mm,
then you can understand the present and you can predict the future. And following what I said about history, I what I do is I link history with the present events. And just like I gave you an example that now Trump is going to have his second presidential term. I'm trying to analyze his policies in the terms of what his policies were in his first term, how it will be changed, how much he'll follow, and yeah.
in
And
politics,
then
he is gonna take some decisions to strict decisions about the people who are living in USA, and he was telling the channel that the person who comes to the USA for living and he got a baby, and someone comes to him and says, "Congratulations that you are now American." He said that he will throw out all the people who are in USA right now.
yeah, that I've heard. I know that it is a very he's going to be a very nationalistic president, which is pretty predictable.
Mm,
So following what I was saying, continuing with what I was saying, so that is basically my process of analysis, just giving, and just one important thing. Once I've known the issue, once I've learned about the history, I do it. I apply a certain theoretical framework, and I
mm,
see things from a theoretical perspective as well. I see issue from all important international theories, international relation theories like liberalism, realism, constructivism, and even now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to see things from the lens of discourse theory. That I've mentioned it because I'm studying this theory. So maybe if we have a chance to have another interview, maybe till that time I'm well read enough to explain this theory as well. So then I see things from the lens of all of the important international relations theory, and then I develop my opinion, because you need to have your opinion as well, because that's what really that's what exactly analysis needs to be like. And for an example, again, what I did was, and just and sometimes if the because I am a policy student as well, I'm a public policy graduate. I incorporate the elements of public policy analysis in security sector as well. I would try to do pestle analysis of a policy. I would do SWOT analysis of an issue to really get a more clear picture. What I did was, so I was given a question to tell about the geostrategic importance of Caspian Sea region. So my way of answering that question and analyzing was that, first of all, yes, I explained what exactly Caspian Sea is, how geostrategically it's important, and I analyzed it from the lens of heartland and rimland theory. That what heartland theory said, that whoever controls the heartland controls the world, and what rimland theory says, whoever controls the rimland and the sea controls the entire world. So what we see, what I presented in my analysis was that Caspian Sea is in this heartland and rimland region, and every great power, every littoral state is trying to have its influence on that. And then I analyze it from the perspective of realism, that how there is a power politics game happening, and how in the world of anarchy, the very basic concept of realism is in the world, in the situation of anarchy, everyone is trying to do self-help and create their power. And then I analyze it from the light of liberalism, that saying how this Caspian Sea region is a hub for economic interdependence that would really spread, that would really spread for the democratic peace theory as well. Then I analyze it in the lens of constructivism, that how anciently tribes were involved in this region, and how their cultural identity and cultural values and norms of littoral states of the former tribal states, for former tribes, really creates a certain identity of Caspian Sea. Then I did pastoral analysis of this region, that how political it is important, what are economic benefit, what are societal benefit, how technology is going to play a role in this region's geostrategic position. Then I did legal analysis of its, particularly on its that thing, the legal status and how it is going to shape the dynamics. And lastly, I did environmental perspective, that how climate change and the fishing issues are impacting the environment.
Hmm.
I got a good score in that answer. So
Hmm.
that's how I developed my analysis.
Hmm. Kashaf, thank you so much for joining us today. It was really wonderful having you here and learning from your experiences.
Mhm.
But before I wrap up,
Thank you
is
so
there
much.
anything else you would like to share with our audience or any message you would like to leave them with?
Yes, there's something that I would really tell audiences, that what this field is something that it seems that no one knows a lot about this field, but that's a very important and interesting field, especially in the world where we see that not every issue is because it's just we are living in a world where security is not just military security now. As we've seen in Pakistan's national security policy that came a few years back, that it was shift from geostrategy to geoeconomics. So there's the security dynamics of the world are evolving, and with that, we really need to stay up to date. We really need to analyze the security in the way it is evolving. And I really believe one thing, because I am an advocate of mental health as well. So one
Hmm.
thing I really, really want is for people to take care of their mental health. And in order to take care of their mental, they need to know their rights of security. Because if they are insecure, if they are under threat, under surveillance, their mental health is going to impact. And one thing is that mental health is as important, or at least more important, than your physical health. So you need to know what are your rights when it comes to security. You need to know what's happening around the world, so that you can help yourself. And just it is a realist world where everything is self-help. So you need to help yourself. You need to know your rights, and you need to know about the strategic dynamics that the world is evolving with, because sooner or later we are all going to be impacted with the policies being powerful right now, but the less powerful, or the it's basically the us human, the us layman, us individuals that are impacted by the whole landscape. So now everything is going to be impacted on us. We need to know our rights to protect
Hmm.
us.
Any message or any suggestion for me, Kashaf?
I think you're doing a great work. Just continue with your interviews, and continue exploring different dynamics. I've seen your YouTube channel, and it's very interesting that you really call people from different fields and have a very holistic podcast. That's very different. I've seen a lot of podcasts, but this podcast is very different. So I wish you very good luck, and I wish you a lot of success.
Thank you very much, Kashaf, that you have given me a lovely piece of advice. And I believe that I'm gonna invite you in coming days with another topic with different questions, so that the people who wants to watch this podcast, they will get strategies to develop that strategies in their life, so they can be successful like people you are. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you so much. I'm really
Thank you
looking
for,
forward to have more interviews with you. Thank you so much.
inshallah. Thank you so much once again that you have participated in this podcast. And have a nice day. Have a lovely day. Take care. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.